In Colorado, the state police did a study, and since legalization, vehicle searches, incident to like running a red light, are down 50%, 50% for black motorists, because now the officers who are POS and want to hurt the black guy, they know even if they find an ounce of marijuana, they can't do anything, so now they are not searching the car. That's right. So this is all very, very good news.
And they're not having a negative interaction with a member of the public that ends badly.
Safety, listen, that's the point. It's like
Exactly.
The way you create officer safety is to have fewer interactions with the public, right? If you take 100 swings with a baseball bat, you're going to hit sometimes, but if you only take a couple swings, half that, or, like you said, 50%, it reduces the possibility of harm, from both sides. Just whatever, like...
Exactly.
Conceptually, am I right, like police would rather not have an encounter than have an encounter? Like if you could, they're not looking for work. I mean, I guess that's really the issue, because Steve's mentioned, and I know that the premise of the stop, it's called good policing. It's making the most of the stop, sensing, asking questions to the best you can. It's the rubber meeting the road in this constitutional line that's somewhere out there in the abyss of the traffic stop, But, as you said, it's one word against another, but that's good policing, one would say. But that is a path and an easy path to create more work, and they've been encouraged by a lieutenant on duty or one of the upper up to do that every night, bring in arrests and ticket people and whatnot, because of the financial motive. Is that what this is all about?
It is what it always is about.
Is there a philosophical reason? Like, I know there's always been, it came out of the Vietnam protesters. The fear was always that if everybody's smoking cannabis, no one's going to want to go to war. Everyone's going to they're going to fight they're not going to have an army. Everyone's going to be putting flowers at the end. There was a theory of that. I think the DEA, or somewhere in there, they were passing that stuff around. That's not an existing principle within the law enforcement community that's being suggested, is it?
They did determine a long time ago that LSD had that effect. The Army was testing it on platoons of guys, and they found out that uniformly across the board, anybody exposed to LSD didn't want to go to war.
Howard, are you still there?
It says he's in there. He's in there somewhere. Let's try calling him back.
All right. But I went in too long. I didn't let him answer the question, probably. But
I think you upset him. Hold on.
Now we've got.
What I found most remarkable so far?
Steve, what did you find most remarkable?
That I told you something a couple days ago that you don't remember, and you asked me again today. But yet you can remember what Howard Woolridge talked about 8 months ago. It's fantastic.
But I know I've got 2 or 3 swings with you. I had 3 strikes out with you.
Well, that was weird.
Good. Howard's back.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
There he is.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. But no, I stopped in and talked to my old colleagues. A couple of guys are still there, and some other guys from Lansing PD. The younger guys, the guys in their 20s now, they're fully on board, at least in Michigan, to let go of marijuana and get back to real police work. Right. The ones who are POS around the country that just want to be a prick, they are not happy with legalization of marijuana because they cannot hurt the people that they don't like. But the good news is that the people are moving around the country, and even here in Washington, D.C., to end this sad chapter in American police work of so much contact with the citizens, which leads to pain, suffering, and death, mostly for the motorist, especially those of color. So it's all good news in that this is following gay rights and changes, and it's moving very quickly.
That's a fascinating statistic of the reduction in contacts with black motorists. Almost to the point where it needs to be screamed and yelled, because I do think that
it literally is saving lives.
Because it reflects this exact point, which is that this policy is the prohibition of cannabis is a racist law. It was born out of racism, and in other antagonism. Nixon, put on he wanted the civil rights activists and anyone that wasn't on his, he couldn't lock him up because of political opponent, so he wanted to, but that defines it. That statistic says, okay, if you stop it, look what happens. There's half devastation to what was happening before. That's caused, look at all the damages caused the last 50 years, But so that's a fantastic, it's remarkable. People, but it's also, the way you're describing it, it's the legalization of it literally frees people to a certain degree. You know what I mean? It is it's like a just hearing you describe it, like the travel within a vehicle. If, like you said, they can get it for any reason. Without that, there has to be a real reason, like some other.
That's when the rest of our civil rights start to work.
But that's what I'm saying. Like the freeing up. It's not just. I mean, it's the black market, but it's like. I mean, obviously, it's a targeted group. But I'm saying conceptually, it's an idea of. Like granting back a freedom to a certain degree. What do you think the reaction is on this driving issue? We may have talked about this in the past. I know Colorado stuck with the per se 5 number. The state of Michigan is doing some studies right now. They got 5 counties that are doing like a guinea pig study, roadside swab testing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I'm sure you guys know that when they make it 5 nanograms or 2 nanograms or whatever, they're pulling that right out of their ear. There's been some as to what would be the wrong number, and the compounded by the fact that if you're using medical cannabis, then you be 20 or 30 nanograms and still be driving sober because the pain sucks up the intoxicating effects of it. So it's a very much we need some research. But let me just say, in talking to like a sheriff of a major county in Michigan recently, he said, look, the problem today is 24/7 people driving high on oxycodone.
Damn right.
Sure.
And Percocet and Vicodin.
And oddly enough, the law here
people
that they passed that allows them to do the swab test was born out of a story about a couple being killed by some fool driving around high on pills. I mean, just crazy.
Well, I would say this:
Sure.
there's no per se level for any of those other narcotics, and
correct. That's correct.
And for example, Marinol, which would be THC or dronabinol or whatever, says use with caution. It doesn't even say you can't drive. It says like don't drive. It doesn't say you're not allowed to. It's
It says don't use it until you're used to the effects of this drug.
Right, something to that effect. Right, don't drive.
Right.
But so the idea that there's some level, and I agree with you. And someone asked me the question the other day, and my response was, what do you think is going to change? Like whatever is going on. Like, do you think when you legalize marijuana, you get some people that are, you may get the group of people, there'll be a category of people that will start using it recreationally. But there are people using it all the time. Like it's they're driving around. If it was really a concern, like they say, we would have overwhelming abundance of evidence of traffic crashes that were caused directly from it. I'm not talking about alcohol and marijuana. I'm talking about opiates and marijuana or some other drugs. I'm talking exclusively marijuana for just that. You know what I mean? And I don't think it exists. I don't think they can put those statistics together. And I think that it's a talking point.
And let me just say, it's a personal question is I found very effective, and say, so the person who says we shouldn't do it because of the problem of DUI marijuana, I simply say, when was the last time in your lifetime you picked up the paper or you saw the 6 o'clock news, a couple kids got into a car high in marijuana, crashed the car, and 3 died? Yeah. When was the last time you saw that? Have you ever seen that headline? Versus with alcohol, you see it, once or twice a month, right? And that helps the citizen understand that, wait a minute, since I haven't seen it in my lifetime and you got 40 million people smoking, maybe it's not as big a problem as I may have thought it would be. And that's the same thing. In my 18 years as being a street cop, I went to 0.0 calls for service of any kind based on the consumption of marijuana, whether it's a car crash or domestic assault, blah, 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 rape. 0. And that is a lot of guys will do 25 and 30 years, retire, and never go out to a house or an accident caused by somebody high in marijuana. I mean, we know in the police world that this is a non-issue, non-problem for society, but you have to convince the citizen who's scared of this because this power structure has made them be very afraid of DUI marijuana. It's a gateway drug. All the other crap they've been putting out for 40 years. You and I have the job and the task of saying, no, that was government propaganda.
What about this? And here's where I see the biggest hurdle, and I see just these two worlds colliding, two planets colliding, which is if you lift the criminal and forfeiture sanctions associated with marijuana specifically in November, and Michigan's law is to treat it like alcohol and fine civilly, and there's like a graduated penalty for civil fines and whatnot. But
sure,
in my travels as a criminal defense lawyer for 25 years, I will tell you that there isn't a courtroom that I walk into that on the docket, the cases that are set for criminal, 40 to 50%, maybe more sometimes, involve marijuana cases. These courtrooms,
sure,
which employ judges, probation, oversight, drug testing, all these deputies, retired deputies, not nothing against them, and court staff and transcripts, and all the energy, 40% of that is driven towards dealing with marijuana. And this is a big courthouse. In fact, it's the biggest courthouse in the county or the city because it's the place where people come to, litigate their case and pay their money. And I just find it as, like a lot of these local governments don't have resources other than this. And of this that they're bringing in and living off of, 40% of it, the minimum is made up of marijuana. How do we get around that? Because it's a government management issue. It has nothing to do with policing. You know what I mean? It's like it's illegal for the resources to
It's
do
bloat.
police.
It's bloat.
What do you think
It
about
needs
that?
to go away.
Let him answer.
Well, and you're touching on what happened in Ferguson, Missouri, where they used traffic law and misdemeanor law and ordinances to fill up like 40% of the city budget, and they were busting the balls of the black community to make that money so that white people wouldn't have to pay as much in property taxes. Now, the Missouri legislature in Jefferson City did address that and some other places, but it is obviously a problem still in many jurisdictions. And you also touched upon it. The drug treatment people do not want this to go away because they're making $35 billion this year off from the judge says, do you want to do 6 months in jail or you want to do 6 months of treatment? And, of course, you choose the treatment, and then the ABC Corporation makes $20,000 in 6 months to have you go pee in a cup a couple times a month.
Well, so I did see, so the Department of Justice, I mean, it's interesting. We went to, we saw the Jeff Sessions, Jeff Frazier in my office, and a lawyer that sometimes comes on our show invited us to this event where he spoke at, and we were fascinated that his main issue dealt with First Amendment freedom of speech and freedom of freedom of religion, so to speak. And I know he just announced his new task force going for, what was it, Jeff? It was about churches, protections for churches and their right to do whatever they want to do and not getting
all churches.
Well, all religions. Religions do. Like he was at a synagogue, I guess Jeff told me, where he made this announcement where he was where they'd been getting screwed around with the local community. But I mean, to say what I'm saying, like if it would make sense. I'm just saying I'm drawing, trying to put some dots together here. But Sessions has been the hurdle, I would think, and is just talk of where he wants to go with this. But they've given him a new platform to kind of focus his energies on. It seemed like I'm just kind of fantasizing, which would then let Trump do his thing and let it be to the states or whatever. But I don't know. Is there any talk about that? Do you think the Justice Department's going to back off on this, or still continue to threaten? And
well, understand that Jeff Sessions is the AG. The fear was in the community of cannabis that he's going to have the DEA unleashed and go after all the stores in Colorado, etc. And the cheerful news is that for whatever reasons, as you know, the DEA has not gone after all the state legal stores in 9 states, plus D.C. And Jeff Sessions is now increasingly a one-man army, and the politicians know that in the wake today, 120 people died from a heroin overdose, and if all of a sudden the DEA announces they busted 20 stores in Colorado, the optics are going to suck, to put it bluntly. And so that's another reason that these U.S. attorneys around the country don't want to have the headlines be DEA busts 10 stores in Spokane, Washington, while